intros. So I'm just hitting record and we're gonna go ahead and start. So I guess we got Mike, Dana, Danil here on this podcast. Mark, obviously, but
Yo.
we're just gonna go in and talk about something that I find really, really interesting. It's just our whole life experience, right? And we're gonna take this in a sense of we're kind of talking to ourselves in the past and like, what do we want ourselves to know from the past, given what we know now? That's gonna be the whole premise of this, right? So, yeah.
Sounds good to me.
I will say contextually for viewers out there that, you know, myself and Danilo / Neil are twins.
I'm here.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hey guys.
And then we grew up with Mark. Since he was 5, I think we were 7 or 8. And me and Neil are just meeting Mike. So it'd be interesting to talk about our life experiences and all those levels, because some of these questions I haven't even talked to my own twin brother about. I haven't talked to Mark about. It'll be interesting getting to know Mike in that level, just meeting him. So I think it just contextually for our viewers.
I mean, we might be all meeting ourselves for the first time.
Oh.
I'm like, I didn't know you guys this whole time.
Getting too meta. All right. Yeah, no, I'm all good with that. I'm good with that. That sounds great. For context with Mike, I just found him like randomly on the internet. No, I'm just kidding. We work together at X company.
At Bleep.
Yeah. And yeah, been keeping in touch even though I don't work there anymore, but trying to start our own podcast.
He left me alone.
I didn't leave you.
To
Hey, I tried
suffer
to... Wait,
and
can I say
die
that?
alone.
Yeah. But yeah, we got. Oh, we're also doing our own tech podcast. Little plug in there, Root Access. Check it out. But yeah, all right. Let's get started.
Word.
Any particular area anyone wants to start in? I mean, we have the topic
Well,
list.
I think the general topic of the conversation is knowing what we know now, would we change anything? And I don't know if this is more of a, I mean, maybe if you guys mean career or life in general, how broad do we want this to be? You know, what do we have to say to ourselves?
I mean, I don't know if anyone's got an opinion, but for me, I want to kind of start from the beginning. And the closest to beginning that I can think of is like this whole education thing. Anyone opposed to going there?
Sure.
Even though,
I mean, I'm not opposed. I mean, I feel like this is one of these topics where someone just has to open the gate. And then I think the flood of opinions will start coming.
Yeah.
Start fighting like, no, I got something to say.
yeah.
But
So-
what? Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say because I think I'm still the oldest here, and
Really? Okay.
yeah. So Mark knows that college. I went to college and used it the wrong way. I think I'll just say that, right? So I went to college and I don't think I was ready. I didn't know what I wanted my major to be. My mom was like, "You're gonna go to this HBCU." I went to Hampton, and the reason why I chose like Hampton over like ODU was simply because the girls were better looking. That is legit the reason why I chose Hampton over like all the other schools. I went to William and
Right.
Mary, I went to ODU, I went to Norfolk State, I went to Hampton, and like some girl walked by, I was like, "Yep, we're going here." And so I got there, I felt like out of place the whole time, and so I never really identified with the college. And so I like I said, I didn't know what my major was, or was going to be. I had just got out, I was like 17, so I had just got out of high school. And when I look back, I would have said, "Hey mom, I want to go bullshit and maybe hang out and travel the world, or go do something else for a little bit to figure out who I am first before I decide how I want to use this tool." Because that's all it is. It's a very, very, very expensive tool.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I like, and like I told you in one of the other talks, Mark, Rashida, who she ended up going on to make history as the first Black woman to ever be a president of a major news network, of MSNBC. She's won where the Grammys. She's been to all kinds. She knows all kinds of people, everything. And she was my roommate at one point. And I don't even know if I'll be able to put that, if we'll be able to put that part on on the
Just believe
podcast.
it.
Yeah, but
It's fine.
just like as a comparison, how she used the same 4 years versus how I used my 4 years, and the difference in between. And then also like the path I chose after I got out is why I'm where I am. And if I had to look back and tell myself, that's what I would say. I'd say, make sure you know what you want to do before you go spend this $100,000, you know, to go get this piece of paper that says you know how to do something. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think it's like bugging me that this is echoing. I also think that when we go to college, like as I accumulate life experience, instead of telling myself like this is what I wish I knew, I accumulate knowledge to give to my unborn children of like, this is what I found out through life and I want you to know. But what I realize is that like college is not, you know, an academic experience too. It's experiencing your life as an adult for the first time. And everyone says, oh, college is the best time of your life. So I expected like, oh, something's great's gonna happen. But then you realize like my first 2 years sucked. And like the last 2 years, I kind of liked it. But it was figuring out your adulthood for the first time. And no one talks about that. And if someone said, it's gonna suck in a lot of times because you're gonna experience some hard things by yourself that no one talked to you about, and just have that heads up when people are like, college is the best time of your life. Like no one talks about the other stuff with like learning the adult stuff. And I think if or when I have kids, I'll be like, this will be a chapter of your life, but it'll also be hard because you're gonna learn a lot of things that you never had to experience as a teenager. Or sheltered under your parents. You're gonna have to do it on your own.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
And that's the thing.
Very true.
So I've said it a couple times. It's education teaches you how to be better at education, right? So when we talk about learning these life experiences, it's the concept of getting lucky that you meet someone who at least either exposes you or tells you like, hey, this is a different approach to it. We even mentioned it on our other podcast where we had a friend who knew about community college. And so he told his other friends, and instead of them being able to, or instead of them paying for, you know, full on classes at wherever they were, I think it was ODU, they got like a discount essentially, right? And so they save a lot more money by doing that, but someone had to tell them. And I think that the education system does a really bad job of telling us like, hey, this is how you should approach life. I know there's debates about whether or not the education should be responsible for that. I'm not too sure, just because there's like so much access to information. It's hard to figure out what you need to learn if there isn't someone there telling you what to learn. And if the educators are already there teaching you something, I feel like you spend a lot of time in the education system. I feel like there's some sort of responsibility there for them to be like, hey, you're going to get a degree, but this is also how, you know, you apply this to your actual life. Because I do mentorship on a subreddit, or I trying to do mentorship on a subreddit. And the common theme I see is, where can I find a job that will teach me to be better at the job, right? So somewhere along this education path, they didn't pick up on the idea that they need to take accountability and responsibility for figuring out what the rest of their life looks like. Like the job isn't just going to teach you how to get better. So there was like some disconnect, and not everyone gets it, but it comes up a lot where people just don't know where to go because there's no longer someone teaching them. So that was a really long blurb. Sorry.
No, we got infinite time basically. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just, I kind of also used it as a tool, but in the sense that I never was a school person. You know, I knew that I just wanted to do my time, get out and get a job. So that was kind of exactly my main objective, was to go to engineering school, put that like university name on my resume, and then, use it to get a job. And I think that might have also been the wrong way to approach it, because I realized I could have probably learned stuff if I had. I mean, I learned a lot, of course, but I could have learned more of what I wanted to if I had seeked it out while I was there. But I kind of was just using it as serving my time to get to a job. So I think I looked at it maybe from the get-go in that way. Maybe that wasn't the right way to go about it. But honestly, too, at the same time, from what I did get there, you know, I think everyone would say the same thing. Probably 80 to 90% of it, I've never used in my real job before. You know,
right.
So, and I'm sure a lot of people will say the same thing. It's more like a systematic. It's a system, you know. Just go to college, and then just by virtue, you'll get a job. You know, like for me, I haven't had anyone check my transcript or my grades. You know,
right.
When I was looking for a job, yeah, sure, they looked at what college you went to and everything, but it's really weird the way that they screen. They use the system to screen whoever is the best qualified to get jobs, and not based off of this education system. But you know, me and my sister were talking about it on the way up here. Like at the end of the day, I'm glad I did it, because it did exactly what I had intended it to do. But I feel like I have just been serving time rather than investing. You know, investing. I could use it as a bigger investment, but. Yeah, I really don't know what to say more than that. I think it was just like, you know, I went there to do this, I got there, and there we go. But it was nothing great, you know.
Yeah, and investment is a good word to use, because that also ties into account that the price of college goes up, and so what you get out of it is also affected by how much you're paying for it. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't go to college, but if you really have, like Mike, you were pointing out, you didn't really know what you wanted to do at that point in your life, it's actually better in value and even cheaper overall to take a gap year to figure out and explore. Right. But again, like every decision you make, you have to use it to essentially keep boosting yourself forward, which I think is the huge disconnect. It's like, I have to go to college.
Yeah, see, I mean, and then that might just come from the era that our parents came from, right, or whatever, where they're like, you know, that was still the way of life then, but now it's completely different. Now you can get a job at a big tech company and never have really gone to college at all, as long as you're good at your craft, right? And I spent most of my time in college partying. When I got out, I didn't even use the degree. I started a business. And
So you didn't even do computers.
Yeah, I didn't even use the degree, you know. And so it wasn't until I started like getting tired of doing what I was doing my business in that I started saying, okay, I guess I got to get a job now. And then when I did, there's a, you know, a college degree was a requirement, but I could have probably also talked my way in by saying, well, I have 7 years of running a business myself. So whatever you're talking about, you know, as far as leadership and networking and social and speaking and presentations and all that thing, I have all that because I've been doing it by myself for this year, and it's been successful. So it's just difficult, man. It's taking the year off would have been good, but then you also don't think about like, okay, 5 years from now, am I going to, at least I didn't, 5 years from now, am I going to be mad that I took this year off? Or I was just kind of winging it, right? Like I had no, thinking about 30 years old at 18, I was not. I was like, that's old. I won't even be thinking about that, right? I'm just, let me smoke this weed and do whatever I gotta do. You know, go to parties, meet these girls, and I'm having fun. And
did you achieve that initial goal though that you had set out for? Like, did you like
the initial goal of
the girls? Like, did you did you at least get that? Okay, all right. So like you did the thing you came there to do at least. Just the rest of it you were out of place. But at least you got like the main what you initially came for. So
you know, I think I had a good time. It was I remember I think you said Dana, right? I remember when you said, you know, life will be the best experience of college will be like one of the best experiences of your life. And for me, doing that social part of it made it one of the best experiences of my life, right? Like the friends that I have from college are really my main core friends, and I talk to them almost every day. All like really great memories that I have are from that time. And I learned a lot about myself because I wasn't concerned about the school part. Of course, I got good grades, right? School is easy for me, but that learning myself, I did do it through college. I just wish I would have had, like, if I would have took computer science as my major instead of architecture or marketing, whatever I did, I think I would be in a totally different situation right now.
It's funny you said that, because I went there with kind of the career path that I always knew I was at that point, that I was like destined to take at that point. And for me, college was, for me, honestly, it was the lowest point of my life, I think, which is really ironic. The only good things and I've talked to Mark about this before, the only two things I got from it is I got, the job, which was why I came there. And I got my wife, my current wife, we met there. Those are like the only two good things that came about it. But really, for me, I was out of place the whole time. Like, it was a really bad time in my life. So it's interesting, the two different perspectives. But I think, again, I kind of went there for the wrong reason, and also I had this set thing that I was going to be this. And then, so I just went and did it. And, I kind of get there finding out that maybe it's not what I'm supposed to be doing, but I still kept going along with it. And I think that's one big reason why I felt out of place. And again, it was rough for me. Friends and stuff, sure, but I just felt not, I didn't feel in my own skin, the whole time, which was weird. So, and it's funny because sorry.
Just get it out, Neil. Just get it out.
And it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like the old guy, like, man, back in the day, high school, man.
Yeah.
Oh man. If coach would have put me in, man, we would have made state. Like, I'm like that guy. Like, high school was like up here because we were just going to school. We were having fun with our friends, and at that point, you're not committed to a career yet. You had the whole world in front. You could do at that point whatever you wanted to do.
Right.
And then so then I go to college. Everyone's, oh, college is going to be even better. It's going to be great. It's going to be this and that. And so you kind of have that expectation. Mm-hmm. And then you get there and you realize that it's not like all it's cracked up to be, depending on your route. Because like you said, you went a different route and you had a great time. But, it's kind of young and naive. You kind of just expect it to work and be great and be awesome, like everyone says it's going to be. And then when things kind of don't go your way, they all pile up. And then, I just at that point I was just in survival mode to graduation, basically. So
oh man,
it's crazy. It's crazy, the two different.
I will echo your perspective that college was also like the lowest point for me as well, but I think we had similar experiences where we had things going on with our family that was really tough, like the first 2 years, and it was the first time we lived out of home. And I felt like home was a security. And I think you and I came from a different place where we came from a really cool high school where everyone knew each other. And I went to two different high schools. Like in the morning, I went to Indian River where Neil went full time. And then I went to Governor's School in the afternoon. And Neil really excelled because he was like a popular guy. Like everyone knew him. Like it was like a really like happy atmosphere. And I really like was happy because I was doing something I loved. Like I was doing art stuff. And like, it was a small community. And I think like where me and Niels's experience parallels is that we went from these small ecosystems to these huge universities. Like I went to UVA, he went to Tech, and there's like thousands of kids, and you'll meet that kid once and you'll never see them for the rest of the 4 years. And it was so hard developing a social network, especially when you're moving out of your parents' house for the first time. You don't know what the hell you're doing. You're spending a lot of money. So there's a lot of pressure on you to figure out what you're doing. And then there's personal things going on at home. Like, again, like our family was going through some stuff. And like, you're like, oh, like, I mean, I was well liked in Governor's School. I'm like, I have no friends. I have 0 friends here. It took me a while to like find friends because it was such a big school, and even the classes were like hundreds of kids, and there's obviously no assigned seating, so like you just never meet. And I'm not a Greek girl, like so like it was really hard for me to find friends. Like I finally found friends through roommates and then through their friends, But like, that's where I struggled, along with like dealing with life things outside of your parents and like the security of home, where you finally have to deal with it as an adult for the first time. So I think college was the lowest point for me, but I think grad school was better for me because it's like, again, it compacted down to 30 people, and it was the same 30 people every day versus like hundreds of kids. And
yeah, you were like back in your social life in grad school, because you guys were tight.
yeah,
Like you guys would hang out with each other all the time.
yeah, we're like
Yeah, I remember
family.
that. Yeah. And you were
That's
back home
crazy.
too. You were in
Mhm.
Norfolk again. So
That's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, I didn't think about the size of the school.
yeah,
Like
that's
that
a good point
is-
she made.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
That
a
is a
good.
very good point, because
Yeah.
Hampton did not like you said, your grad school. That's more how I would think Hampton. Like I could think maybe 60 to 100 at the most, very most kids in one single class. Other than that, it just was like 30, 40 people maybe.
Mhm.
So I did not even think about that, because I feel lost and isolated in that
Yeah.
environment as well. Damn.
And yeah, that's a really good point. Because also, like with me, my dream school was Georgia Tech, right? But you know, it was expensive. It was out of state. So the next best thing for engineering, you know, like every school is great in its own. You know, they each has their programs and their strengths. So for me, for engineering, it's like, well, probably Virginia Tech. But outside of engineering, like I don't normally hang out with like a lot of people are there for like agriculture and like you know, and like they come from like, it's a little bit more like not, you know, not the normal people that I hung out with. So I didn't have a lot in common with the general population of Virginia Tech. Like I wasn't, you know, beer pong, football.
Right.
I got into it, but that wasn't my core, you know, thing. That's all everything was at Tech, you know. So I think, yeah, that and then it's like 20,000 of those, you know, like people that are
Right.
not, you normally wouldn't be friends with, and it's hard to make friendships when we don't come from the same place or have the same kind of interests. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that was another
Yeah.
thing. You know, if I went to maybe a city school, I feel like if I went to VCU or ODU or even Georgia Tech in the middle of Atlanta, I feel like I would have acclimated better there, because I was just thrown out in the middle of the country, like, and it like in the mountains, and literally that setting, it was not good for me, because I'm like, man, I feel like I'm in the boonies, you know, which you kind of are. You just have Black Virginia Tech. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that was a big part of it too. You know, that's a big
That's
part
crazy.
of it too.
Yeah, I was going to echo that culturally, you and I didn't fit into our schools. Like Virginia
That's
Tech
true.
has that beer pong,
Yeah, that's
like
you know,
camo hat,
camel hat.
like
No.
football, blah, blah,
I don't even,
blah.
like, honestly, I don't even like our colors, man. Maroon and orange. Come on, get out of here.
Oh yeah, man, it's
Seriously?
questionable.
You know, it's like I gotta represent my school every once in a while, but you know, it's like it's not working for me. You know, I can't wear a big orange maroon hoodie. I'm like, everything about that school was not me. Like, it was not right. It was, like that's, you know, when people say forcing it, that whole college experience, I don't know about if you would call it that, but for me, it was forcing it
Yeah.
just to get that diploma, you know, at the end.
And
As sad as it is to say.
UVA
sounds
was
tough.
super
Yeah.
like preppy, and that was the opposite of what I was, where I was coming from like this artsy background.
I would visit like UVA, and dude, it's true. People are out there, like kids are out there rocking bow ties, man, just on a daily basis. Yeah, I'm like, man, this is like, I feel like I feel a little out of place here too.
And I
Yes,
think,
some upper class stuff over there in Charlottesville.
and like I think that's what made it hard for me to like make friends, because I didn't wear polos and stuff, and then it just made me stick out like a sore thumb, and it made me feel isolated and like I'm not like you. And there's this huge Greek culture. I think it was like
Oh my
60% of kids
yeah,
rushed.
the Greek culture there.
So everyone knew each other from like frats and sororities.
Yeah.
And when you met someone at UVA, they always said like, oh, what frat or sorority are you in? And if you said, I'm not in any, they're like, oh, and they just go to something else. So if you don't rush, you are automatically pushed out of social culture. And it's just
Oh
really
my
hard
gosh.
to find friends outside of
sounds-
that.
That does sound tough. That sounds like really hard. That sounds like really difficult
Yo.
to deal with.
But does any of your teachers tell you about this? No, you just get like
Nah.
a lot of people, like a lot of what y'all are hinting, and it's like you just get tossed in. You gotta figure it out.
Yeah. And honestly,
yeah.
like again, it was just to get that name, just to get that,
Yeah.
you know, not even the name, just to say I went to college for engineering. Doesn't matter what. I have a bachelor's.
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh.
And you know, I wish they would have told us how to you know, how to shop for a mortgage or how to shop, you know, hey, how does compound interest work in everyday life? You know,
Right.
just valuable skill. Like you didn't get one single class of that out of college. You know,
Right.
I don't know about you guys, but I
No.
didn't,
No.
right? And those are like, I feel like the daily skills that you do, like once you have to buy a car for the first time, like you use that in your real life, you get smarter because of that. Not because
Right.
of like taking English for the 11th time that you've already taken through grade school, you know,
Exactly.
yeah. So
With
I
that real
agree with
quick,
that sentiment.
what's it called? Mike brought this idea to my attention in our other podcast called wavelength, right? Where
Mm.
sometimes you're just not ready to learn things. Because I was under that impression too. Like a lot of English is like, okay, I'm learning this for whatever, but why am I learning it? And I can't see it when I'm a kid. But if I like reflect on some of the concepts you learn from English, like breaking down sentence structure and diagram, like you know those like weird diagrams you had to write in 5th grade. I actually use those techniques to diagram out services and stuff in computer science. It's just you got to get to that point to where you can start relating things that you learned before. So that experience that you had like at 17 makes no sense. At 30,
Right.
all of a sudden makes sense in the world. Because when we talk about, you know, interest and compound interest and all that stuff, sure, we never took a class for it, but if you took statistics,
Yeah, it's in
it's
there.
all there. It's
But you know
just
what?
it's not applied.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
what's missing.
You would have, yeah, they should have told you like, oh, by the way, this compound interest formula you're learning, it applies to everything: credit cards, cars,
Right.
houses, stock market.
Exactly.
They don't say
Yeah.
that. They just say
Exactly.
this is the formula. Here's a quiz on it. Can you plug and chunk numbers in?
Yeah,
You know how to
exactly.
work the formula.
Yep. It's all memorization. So I think like that's one of the potential strategies we can change with the education system, where instead of doing memorization, focusing on can you get 100 on this test, it's more applied applications of what you're learning and like, do you actually understand it? But it's weird, right? Because everything up until your career, everything is a number. Everything is like, did you get 100? You got an A. Did you get 75? You got a C, or whatever the ratio is. Like that's
right, yeah.
That's the focus. No one really cares if you can apply this to buying a car, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So
or to your career that you're going to school for.
Right. It's all just for the number. I say that like education isn't, you get value out of it, but in reality it's not really for you, because the focus is the grade, not your actual outcome of it. So it's
such a good point.
really weird.
It's so abstract and theoretical that you have to figure out how to apply it to your life.
Exactly.
Right. It's like the foundation of stuff, I guess, in order for you to build on top of to learn what you need to learn in life. Maybe.
Yep. But then how do you get that information? Because I don't, like when you're younger, I don't think your brain is capable of thinking in those types of directions unless you're like
just way ahead of your time, right?
Yeah. Or, I mean, honestly, I would consider that person would be labeled as weird, right? And so it's like society, the people, the way you need to be, in my opinion, to be more efficient with your lifetime, society would label it as weird. So in the sense of that, why would you be something that society labels as weird?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you have to go against the status quo, but how do you learn that at such a young age when most of what you're learning is based off of your environment? It's
and honestly, at a young age, you kind of just you're not even thinking about that. All you're thinking about is expectation. Oh my God, like I'm here. My whole goal in life, what my parents told me, what all my peers around me were doing, was to go to school, be successful at school, get a good job. So you're not even thinking about why the heck am I doing this?
Right.
So you're just going through the motion because everyone else, well, at least for me, everyone else is, and it's like, oh, I have to be at least on par with them, if not better, you know, because my whole life, it was just like, you know, we were trained, we were going to go to college, or you're going to go to school, you're going to do this, and then that's it. And we hadn't really thought outside of that.
So here's a kind of like a thought question real quick. Sorry, I saw you, but I just want to put it out there. We don't have to respond to it. But when you're a kid, your imagination goes wild and crazy. You're not necessarily thinking about like grades and stuff. So if you remove education from your lifetime, what happens? Is it that your imagination continues to grow and you develop into this new type of thinking, new type of thought? Or do you naturally go into the more education? Do you naturally focus more and turn into that? Like, is it an inevitability that you come out looking more like someone who fits into the education system? Or is education shaping who we become? If that makes sense.
I feel like, I think it's dependent on the individual, because probably for me and Dana, and I'm speaking on her behalf, but I feel the same thing. I feel like we would have gone a more creative route.
Yeah.
Rather than go to, because again, I never was into school. Like, yeah, sure, we had to get good grades and stuff just because we knew the consequence, from what our parents were telling us.
Exactly.
So, but I don't feel like if I were not guided by, or, if I had none of that guidance or expectation, I would not have, gone that route if it were just all on me.
Do you think maybe like a class, like an elective in high school that's like, hey, we're going to tell you about the adult that you're about to become, right?
That would be a good elective. Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you're going to have to buy cars. And when you buy cars, there's going to be sales dudes that do this. And when you go to college, you need to try to pick something, just like you guys said, when you go to college, you need to pick something that is not just a fit for what you think you want to do, but it needs to be a fit for your personality type.
Right. Because you also have to live there. You have to spend your life there.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Like they should get that instilled in you as an elective in high school.
Right. Or maybe we could come up with like an after high school course, right? Like, after high school, pay us $500 a pop and we'll teach you all you need to know.
I just bought this Lamborghini, but you know what's more important than this Lamborghini? Knowledge.
Wait, can we get sued for saying that?
No, we're good. And people knock on him all the time, so I think it's fine on YouTube.
Dude, man.
Real life knowledge. I mean, I don't know about where you went, Mike. It sounds like you're from here, like Hampton
pretty
Roads.
much.
Okay, so like, did you guys have an elective where basically all you did was cook all day? Like it's home skills, something like that?
What, in high school?
Yeah,
but I didn't take that, right? Like, I took was it like engineering or shop or whatever it was called, right?
The tech elective,
CO2 cars and shit like that. Yeah.
But in my mind, if you can have a cooking class in high school, they should offer like
Adult 101.
Adult 101. There we go.
You know why? Because literally everybody becomes an adult. So it seems like it would apply to everyone.
Dude, maybe that's a YouTube University thing we could do, man.
Yeah,
knowledge.
Knowledge.
Adult 101.
Yeah. That's a good point.
If I can insert my theory now, because I shared this with Neil previously about my existential crisis in life, about the middle class, how they train us to be ignorant on life.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, totally. And it's like, for me, I was pushed to excel academically. And then in corporate world, there's no reward after that, and I was like,
escape either.
Yeah, they basically trained me to be a good corporate worker.
Exactly. That's yep.
She blew my mind when she said this, because it's like you always see, you usually see the fight between, the ones at the very bottom, who can't make it out, and the ones at the very top. But she had put it in a good perspective. Even those in the middle, they had conditioned us to go through this system and compete and like rip each other's faces off to compete with each other to make them their profit.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You're trained to be a cog in the system.
Yeah. And I hadn't thought about that. I knew about, they trained us to be the cog in the system, but in terms of the raw, like, ripping your face, like battling each other, to put it in someone else's, pocket. The grand scheme of things, I didn't see it that specifically. That blew my mind.
How much can we push the middle class to put 60 to 80 hours a week to fight for that director job, so then they can work even harder, and this 1% is making all the money from all these like middle class people.
Us fighting each other.
Yeah, fighting
because they're
each
telling
other.
us it's going to be good for us to rise the ladder, and they're kind of just laughing because they're just we're just fighting, we're just scrounging amongst each other, just like, and it's funny because it's literally, you know, all of us, in one way, we're all scrapping against the world and we're just trying to make our ends meet. And it's funny because they are the ringleaders they're pushing this level of competition up, and this level of, oh, you have to go to college, you have to get this BS, you have to get this whatever. You know, they're the ones kind of fabricating or synthesizing this whole process, you know. And I didn't think about it that way. I knew this whole thing is a systematic process. We go to school, we get our job, but the thought of it being orchestrated by that top 1% in terms of, we're devising this system for you to, you know, it's like battle of the fittest against yourselves, and we will profit at the end of it.
Yeah,
that kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it like that.
Yeah.
That's so. Yeah, you're saying like we are all fighting to get up to the next level, and they profit regardless.
Right.
Right.
They
They're
make
profiting
millions off our backs.
Yeah.
And we're fighting each other to get up that corporate ladder. And they all start us off with student loans. So we have to get into the corporate world and start like trying to pay off that debt that'll take decades for us to pay off. And we're all fighting for it. And I was telling Neil that I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is a book that our mom gave us 10 years ago. And I finally picked it up and read it. And it had what was really poignant for me was that rich people stay rich, middle class people stay middle class, and poor people stay poor because their parents teach them those habits.
Right.
And the middle class mentality is you make money by the hours that you put in. You have to physically produce things to be paid. The rich mentality is that you make one product and it makes money for you even as you sleep.
Right.
And so like, that's why we burn out in the middle class, because we're constantly like, look how many hours I did versus this person. Like, I want that slightly higher paid job than this person. Like, it's just such a stupid system.
That blew my mind too, because, you know, you don't think of it because we are, you know, an essential office workers, but really, the only return we get is our hours. We're literally getting paid by the hour, you know, and it's not, you know, my time now is not getting invested in the future other than, you know, the saving, this 401 and the 457 that I'm putting our own money into. But really, none of what we're outputting at work is going to compound and be in our favor in the future. You know,
that's so true.
We're only getting paid that whatever your paycheck rate is, that's it. There's no return on that in the future, except that percentage we're taking out of our own pocket to put into our retirement or whatever. You know what I mean? And that blew my mind too, because the people at the top, of course, they invested their money initially and they're getting their return based on all our work, and they're not doing, you know, they're not really doing anything.
But do you think that's changing though, slowly but surely? We have more people doing YouTube, more people are streaming Twitch, more people are doing like all these creative things to try to they're breaking out of that. I think maybe it's of course it's slow to turn a huge boat, but I think I don't know. Do you think that's changing?
I certainly hope so, and that it's more of an avenue for us. And it's funny because I think me and Mark were just talking on the phone the other day, and it's funny that, and we can get into this later, but to sum up my life, I went to school and get this job or whatever. And as of now, I'm doing like Lego reviews on YouTube to try and maybe find a way to get out of this life. I'm trying to like do YouTube videos and anything I can do for a glimmer of hope to maybe one day be able to quit my job. So it's funny to go this whole circle, living the dream, so to say. And I'm finding myself trying to get a way out of it.
Right.
And that's what me and Mike are trying to, this is why we're on this podcast.
Oh, hey guys. Oh, is this the anonymous group? Oh, there you go. Yeah. Career anonymous.
Yeah. I do want to go back to what we say about like the system and like training us to kind of like fight with each other to go up the corporate ladder. I want to point out, like, in school, the target is higher grades. And how do you compare students? Whoever has the higher grades. So that competition actually gets ingrained in us a lot earlier than we realize. It's actually pretty crazy, right? Because, and then you talk about how do, well, I mean, it's just grades. We benefit. How do we profit? Well, graduation rates determine how much funding schools get. Like that takes a part in it. So
And then SOLs too, maybe.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? And then so
Yeah.
the schools start benefiting, like, hey, you need to focus on education. You need to focus on education. You need to go to college, because at the end of the day, this whole cycle depends on the success of the students, right? So again, this whole idea of like education is for education. It's
Yeah.
not really for you, but you get value out of it.
If you use it right.
Exactly. Along the road, there comes a point in time where it needs to just click that you're a cog in the machine. You need to, wake up from the matrix and
Right,
understand
right.
what's going on and use your life around that, right? So all these status quos and stuff is like, is it really what you should be doing, or is it some like AI telling you that you need to do this? It's like,
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly like what I tell the kids.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I was gonna, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, I'm just like,
Yeah.
I say, so what do you guys want to be? And they're like, I don't know, and that's, I mean, at 10 and 12, that's kind of like the answer. Sometimes kids know, but sometimes they don't. And even if you do know, you probably won't end up being that shit anyway, right?
Yeah.
So, but I say, so what do you want to go to college? And my son, he's 12, he's just like, no. And I don't, at this point, I can't even say, well, you should go to college because you'll be able to get a good job. Like, I can't even rebuttal with that. I just let him say it. I'm like, okay, well then what are you gonna do? Like, it's like, if you're going to avoid college, then make sure that you avoid debt, make sure you avoid responsibilities and obligations. If you want to just live on a beach and have a drink and surf all day, then you can do that, but just make sure that you don't do things that will prohibit you from doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all it's about.
Like, if you choose your own path, you have to, like, it's harder to not go the college route because it's such an untraveled path. Right?
Well, see, yeah, go ahead. My bad.
Oh, yeah, real quick. Just so you have to take ownership of figuring out what that is. You have to find people who've gone there and get experience from them, because most people you talk to won't know what you're talking about. And what I find is a lot of people end up failing in that route. In like if you scope the time frame of like, oh, I haven't been able to succeed and get like a good job in 4 years because I'm trying to find myself, people will go, you failed. But then you hear stories about, like, I think there's a couple of famous, Oprah Winfrey was a good one, where she quote unquote failed up until she became a billionaire, right? So it's like,
Oh yeah, right.
I mean, you know what I mean? There's multiple paths. It's just less traveled, and so the scope of how long you're looking at the lifetime does matter. But I mean, if I could just not have a stable job, or be that successful career for 10 years, and in 10 years I'll just turn into a billionaire, I will take that 100 100 times. Like, like why wouldn't I? But then you're taught to go, no, you need to take the stable job, blah blah blah. And then it's like,
that's the thing, because like I was interested in, because I listened when your podcast before, so I knew you had kids, so I was kind of wondering how you were approaching that too. So I've got my own little one, and I'm thinking like the way that I would want to explain it to her is, sure, go to college, it's going to be a good tool to get a career, but I think I really want to emphasize to her that that's not what life is about. Like, it's a good way, if you could go to college and get a job, that's going to be great and do good at it. But I don't want you to miss out on life, meaning that don't put this at the center of your life. Because I think for the way we were raised, it was the center of the success and happiness, and the success of your whole life is going to be dependent on you getting a good job for some reason, getting a career.
Right.
And we didn't know any better. So I would want to instill that in my daughter, saying that if you do choose to go to college or whatever it is, if you have to resort to a cubicle office job, if it's not really what you want to do, okay, it's a good way, it's a safe way to do it, but don't make it the center of your life. Make sure you have, it's something that's not going to consume your soul. And I don't know how to explain that yet as of now. I have a couple, she's 2 years old, so I got a couple years.
You got a little while. You got a few years
while.
before you have to have real talks. Yeah.
Right, she's like turning 2, so so I've got a while. So I got to think about how I can do that, because she's going to go to school, and she's going to, of course, be going under the same system that we all went through. And depending on how how children are taught now. I don't know if Mike, you have a better idea, but I don't know how strong the influence is on the typical route of, you know, you need to do this and this and this. I'm sure everything is still standardized just like it was before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, like for me, I saw this one YouTube video, and there's this guy, I think his name is like Sadhguru or something like that. And he's like, you know, kids aren't meant to be raised, right? You raise cattle. Kids are, you know, kids are supposed to be cultivated, right? You give them the space
right.
and the freedom to find themselves, because they are a human being. They are a soul, or whatever you want to call it. They are a presence in this reality, and they can be their own unique expression of whatever. So you can't try to force them into the same cookie cutter wedges that you learned coming up, because then you might be limiting them, or you know, stunting their growth spiritually, right?
Wow.
So that's why I tell the kids, I probably said in any other podcast, just like, you can do whatever you want, just be willing to deal with the consequences of your choices. So if you, like I said, if you just want to sit on the beach and just do nothing all day, I wish I could do that right now. Right.
But
like
I got you two to do
it. You know,
but that's another
exactly.
topic.
Yeah, exactly. So I just try to let them know that, you know, if you're going to go to college, just make sure you know what you're going to use it for.
Right.
I won't force you to go just because you're graduating high school. If you need to figure out who you are first, then do that. But it's my job to kind of be like that stick that when the tree is sort of growing, you know, you use it to stand it up straight at first, but after that you take the stick off and it grows in its own way.
Jesus. That's a really good analogy.
I mean, like, that's perfect. I never, you know, thought of even that before. I mean, we're a very unique species in that, yeah, man, everyone could be something totally different in terms of their, you know, their creativity or their mental state or whatever they want to do. So that's crazy that, yeah, we're all herded the exact same, we go to the same school, taught the same curriculum, and we're all totally different, you know, and yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, so hopefully I'm not screwing their heads up, right? Like you never know, right? You could be totally fucking them up. So I'm just like, you know, I try to, like, with my kids, I'm the same way I am with everybody else, right? I probably seem crazy to them, but they know I'm fair. I try to be objective, and I'm always honest. If they don't like something, I'm not gonna, like, if you don't want to eat dinner, okay, fuck it, then don't eat. Bye. You know, like
consequences, though, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You know
don't come
happen.
to me 10 o'clock talking about you're hungry. I'm gonna be like, I'm playing Demon Souls right now. You're gonna have to.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, touching upon the what Neil said about how we were raised and how success was the focal point above happiness. It's interesting comparing Asian and American culture, because I feel like American culture is very much pursuit of happiness, and Asian culture is make your parents proud, be successful, and especially for immigrants and first generation Americans. I read an interesting article about why there's so much pressure to increase generational wealth between immigrant parents and first generation Americans. And like, put yourself in the shoes, like, imagine going to Vietnam, a completely different culture, different language. Like, you're putting yourself out there, you're not around your family, your friends, and you're pursuing this idea that your kids will have a better life than you. And in your lifetime, you want to see that ROI. So it's interesting because it's like, I can maybe speak for Neil, where it's like, there's a lot of like, oh, this career was pushed on me. There wasn't a lot of focus on my mental health or my happiness. But then I sort of see it in their eyes where they sacrificed a lot and they want to see that generational wealth increase by one generation and see the benefit of their sacrifice. So it's like a hard thing for me to like digest, because now, like, when I think of my children that are not there yet, it's like, how do I translate that? Because we grew up in this culture of like pushing for success, and it's like, I don't want them to be unhappy where like I felt very unhappy a lot of times for having such a high standard to achieve. And like having a balance of, this is what the world is. Like I was telling Neil this too, like my job, I look at a lot of demographics, and as much as we talk about this like rat race of the middle class, I'm still really privileged. Like majority of America makes below 30,000 or 50 to even below 50. And the stresses that I have in life are things a lot of Americans dream of. And so it's like, I'm probably going to be biased when I tell my kids, like, yeah, like you can fit in these tiers of like economic, like living, and there's different stressors there, and you got to pick where you're going to be happiest at. For me, like I'm lucky enough to like be able to eat in a restaurant or maybe travel somewhere because I can earn at a level that allows me those like luxuries. But if I earn in a lesser level, I'm going to be concerned about my bills or how to get food on the table. And I won't be able to experience things that I really like, which is traveling or dinner. So it's like, I think I'm going to make it in that narrative to my kids of like, okay, well, if salary isn't like that 30,000 or less isn't that important to you, this is exactly what the cost of living is and how much it's going to stretch for your dollar, and envision for what you want in your life of like being in that lower salary structure. Like, can you get the benefit of what you want? I don't know if I'm like making sense.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I have a lot to say about that. Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
No. I was gonna say like the switch that I've had throughout a couple of years of my life is like, typically someone will label like money or happiness, right? I've changed it to something like value because it's a lot more abstract. So what do you value in life? It's not me telling you to value happiness. It's not me telling you, it's just like figure out what you value, right? So you talk about stretching a dollar. How do you do that? It's like, oh, do I buy cheaper things? No, you can like go live in a low cost of living area and stretch out your dollar. People are so hung up on like, oh, I make 300K, right? But then if you make 300K and you pay like,
you live in a condo that's like $1 million.
Exactly, right?
In the middle of New York.
Yeah,
exactly.
That makes a difference. That makes a huge difference. I'm
Absolutely.
like, okay, well, but then again, you get into this whole competitiveness of it. Again, because it's easier to focus on, a single number because you don't have to. Now you have competitive drive for salaries, right? It's like, oh, he's better than me because he makes more than me, or she's better than me because she makes more than me. But in reality, like there's so many factors to it, but you have to be aware of it. So I don't have kids yet, but one of the things that I want to put on them is just be able to assess value for yourself. I have no idea how I'm going to teach them that because it's such an abstract concept, but that's what I'm going to try.
It's funny, before, I know Mike wants to say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. I will just say that I agree with in terms of how we were raised. It was literally this career, that's how important you are. They would compare, oh, my kid's doing this, my kid's doing that. So that's all I'll say.
Oh man,
so
yeah.
See, totally different. Yeah.
There's so many different things there. Like, so I heard what you said, the Asian community focuses a lot on that level of success. I don't want to say I beg to differ. I would say like my mother also was like, what is this C that you're bringing back, right? Like you're going to college, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the whole point of probably what I was going to say before I lose it was, normally when you have children, they don't turn out worse than you, right? Because they're building on your experience, right? And a lot of people say when you have a child, the whole science and like time of conception, they are actually like a snapshot of you at that point. So as long as you continue to grow, as long as you continue to cultivate them, it's very hard to I think but have a child in your care that's gonna fuck up and be a lot worse than you, right? Because your lifestyle and the environment that they grow in will say things like, you won't have to say $30,000 isn't acceptable here, right? You won't have to say that because they'll be so used to being in the 150, 100, wherever you're at, that wavelength won't even be visible to them. They will only see this and higher. They will have to like legitimately try to fuck up to go lower. That's how I see it. Right? Like they would have to either get hooked on drugs or alcohol, or get caught up in bad environment. I know like my kids recently, I decided to kind of like stop celebrating Christmas in the general fashion, because these last couple of years I'm like, so what do you guys want to, what do you want for Christmas? This. They're like, nothing. Right? Because you go in their room and they got like an Xbox One with a 40-inch high definition TV and, like internet and iPads and iPhones and all that other crazy shit. Right? So they won't accept anything lower than that. So that's all I can say. Right? Like,
no, I hear you. That's a good point. They're used to that surrounding, and they're used to that level of, everything in life. So I definitely hear that. If anything, they're going to try and outdo what we did, right?
They should naturally.
Yeah.
They should.
And that's what, of course, we're always going to try and instill that, But I hope that we can kind of veer them off making that the focal point of their life.
Yeah.
I always hear though that the Asian community is like really like tough on like you have to prove to your parents. I'm like, damn, man. That's why I can never get an Asian girl, man.
What is this C you're bringing over? What is this?
What's your GPA?
It's interesting. I saw another statistic that like there's this, of course, myth of Asian model minority, because we're out earning a lot of ethnic groups. But the thing that we do poorly in is mental health, because our culture always tells us to never express feelings, to never pursue your happiness if you have to be making your family proud.
Yeah, I think that kind of, I wanted to say earlier when you're talking, that also ties into the story. I'm going to tell your story here, so I'm going to let it out. There was this one specific particular job Dana was in, and it was like eating her alive, like literally every day. It was killing her. Like the corporate structure, the social, their culture, corporate culture, or managers, whatever it might be. Everything about it was bad. And I remember we were just kind of having dinner one day. Our mom came up to visit, and she's like, "Hey, how's the job going?" She's like, and basically it sucks. My life it sucks because it's the job. And our mother's response is basically like, "So just cut that shit off. Like, just go to job, do your work, and live life." Like, what's the problem? I don't see what the problem is here. But it's funny, that notion of like how your career could negatively affect your life and your happiness. It didn't register in our mother's head. Like, it's just like, oh, it's just a job. You just go to your job, you do your work, you work hard, you raise, and then when you're home, you're home. Like, so I don't understand. But they couldn't understand that when you're doing something that's not fulfilling you, that you're not happy about, that could have a negative impact on you. So it's funny how they couldn't put that together, especially when you're putting 60 to 80 hours into it. It's literally the majority of your life spent doing that. And I think even the mission of where you were working was not even aligned with your own morals. So it was like, but it's funny, that correlation of it reminded me of how hardcore the mentality is of, you do this, you be successful, doesn't matter what it is, as long as you're doing a good career, that's all that matters, So it reminded me again of, oh my goodness, like, and I'm not blaming them, because again, they sacrificed so much just for us to do what we had. And literally they were in survival mode when they came here. That literally was, for them to even live, they need to get a good job. And because they had to fight, to get that, they didn't want us to have anything less. So I get that. So they were fighting their whole life for this. But it was just a reminder of how contrasting kind of the life views are there. Because again, I find myself starting a YouTube channel to try and get out of this. I'm the opposite end, where I was telling Dana, I feel like, okay, I don't think we're disgracing what they wanted for us. Because first of all, yeah, we have our jobs and we can get by, so great. But I feel that now that we're here, we're in this age of also an age of information, where we're seeing, just like you were saying, Mike, there are different avenues to make money now, things we actually like to do. I happen to like, I'm not good at it by any means, but I happen to like videography and shooting video of stuff. Well, YouTube, people are living off of YouTube these days, and that's, you know, I would love to do that for a living.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, I hope we're not disgracing, you know, what was expected of us. I think, to the contrary, I think we found another level to, okay, well, you can be successful in your career, but what's the next level? Be fulfilled in life.
Right.
And if we can chase that, I think that's even furthering, you know, what our parents wanted for us, even though they didn't see that level yet. They were just focused on, we need to survive.
Right.
So, you know,
it'll
so
be that next level. You're right.
Yeah. So hopefully it might be like a next level, you know, that, you know, hopefully I can instill with my daughter, saying that, okay, if you need to get a job to survive your career, that's great. But realize, just do what you really want to do in life.
I'll give two examples of two people I know that pursued something for their happiness, and it was a success in one and not a success for the other. And I think this is how I'll approach it with my future kids, where it's like, pursue what you want and what makes you happy, but make sure you have skills that society values that will support you to pay bills. Because it's like, one person that I know, she lives in a van and she travels the country and she sees these beautiful national parks. She's like an outdoors person. She hikes, but she's also a full-time telework person for a corporate company. So she works out of her van. Her quality of life is 1000%. She's like living how she wants. She wants to be a nomad, but she's not feeling insane stressors. Like, you see a lot of depression in like the lower economic areas of America because they can't figure out how to like pay bills, like, or, you know, like meet.
It's hard to get out of that situation.
Yeah, have your basic needs met. The other end, you know, that pursued what he wanted. He like lived in a farm and he came from a very like well-off family, but he didn't, you know, finish college. He didn't develop any corporate skills or any other skills that like society values. And he just milked cows till he was 40. And then he realized like, oh shit, I'm still living off my parents and I don't have a 401k. I barely make 12,000 a year. I'm having this like existential crisis of like, what am I doing at 40? And I never developed skills, but this is what made me happy for 20 years. And now his aging parents have to like support him. So I think there's like a middle ground of like, pursue what you want and what makes you happy, because you only live once and you're experiencing life right now. But there are huge stressors in life that you have to mediate and you have to compromise with, where you have to kind of play the game that society gives you, where it's like you have to like develop some skills that society will pay you for to alleviate some stressors that you may have to go through.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I said value back when I'm like trying to teach my kids. It's like, it's not necessarily I'm going to tell you what's valuable. You have to be able to figure out what's valuable. And I just can't tell you that because I'm never going to fully understand your situation. Like it could even be the next day you find something else like differently valuable. And so you have to act a different way than how you acted yesterday. It'll come down to like the milliseconds of your decisions. But I just can't be there every millisecond going, do this. It's just not going to work. So the best I can do is show them like, you need to understand as much of this as possible to make decisions. Like money, happiness are like the two big ones, but everyone's so hung up on like pursue happiness or pursue money. Like it's two different things. It's like, no, first of all, there's a lot more than that. And you can incorporate all of them and use them to boost yourself. Like doing this podcast makes me happy. If I can make it money, I figured it out. Sweet. So but no one's gonna, I'll tell my parents that, and they're probably gonna be like, okay, just don't quit your job. Okay. So but it's crazy. And then it ties back into what we're saying about this whole system breeds you for the system. Like there's no real class out there, at least on like the track that people normally go on, is like, how do you become a successful YouTuber?
Yeah.
Or, you know, like, sure, you have mathematical analytics, but how do you use that to boost your brand? Like what we were talking about, Neil. Like, it's just, it's not there. None of the practical stuff is there. It's up to you to figure out. And is it because no one has realized that that's important, or because they don't want you to realize that's important? I don't
Meanwhile,
know.
it's not in school. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Or, well, not necessarily in school, but like even openly talked about, it's just not a thing, right? You just have to find a pocket of people. Like this is a really good example, right? Where we start discovering things about ourselves and our experiences with each other, even though we've known each other for, or well, with Dana and Neil, known them since I was 5. But right now talking, I'm, you know, experiencing them from a completely different perspective, just because we never talked about stuff like this. It was more like family parties and like, hey, what are you doing now? Hey, what's college like? Hey, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like cog stuff.
Yeah.
We
You know,
talked
it's
about
funny.
cog stuff.
Wow.
It's
Yeah,
funny.
like, go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead. Yeah, it's funny because in terms of that gathering and not having the really deep conversations and family gatherings. Again, Mike, we've known each other our whole lives pretty much.
Wow.
And it's funny when we get together to sing karaoke, have a good time. You know, we don't necessarily do the karaoke. We play video games.
Yeah.
And we have a good time and, you know, just hang out, have a couple of drinks and stuff like that. My wife, and it could be a cultural thing. My wife, she's Ethiopian, and every family gathering they have, it's no music. They're always sitting in like a circle, and the whole family gathering, it's talking about really deep shit, like politics, what's going on in the world. This person is suffering this way. They need to help them this way. This was great. We had fun. See you next time. And I'm like, okay, like this is like, it really works your mind. And it's funny to see the whole different approach on how they do things versus how we did things. Yeah, but
that's it's funny that you say that, because that's kind of what I was gonna say. Like my family, when we start talking, we talk about this kind of shit.
Oh, really?
And my friends, when we start talking, we talk about this kind of shit. And relationships, like relationships are really big for me. Like the dynamic between men and women is like one of my favorite, as you can see, right? Like maybe I should have listened to like that.
That was your college.
Yeah, that was my calling. Right? Like that was my whole calling.
Yeah.
But so I don't know if it's a cultural thing. I know that myself, I don't want to hear like when you say, hey, how you doing? You say, oh, I'm good. I'm like, and then when the person's like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, man, it's fucked up, man. I was messing with this chick and then she did this and then, you know, this and that. And I just like unload everything out. Like I'm a completely open book. So anybody that comes to me and talks to me about anything, they know they're going to get a tidal wave of like things that you may not supposed to be talking about, like taboo things, whatever the hell is in my mind at the moment, it's going to come out. And some people think that's a drag, right? Like some people don't want to be around that. They think it's complaining. They think it's all that. And that's fine. Unfortunately, I'm like, well, fuck you, you know, like that's what I talk about, right? Like, so I think a big part of it is listening to yourself and just being okay with being different and understanding that you're not going to fit in everywhere and everybody's not going to like you. And it just, I don't know. I don't really know how to put it, but it's really interesting to hear that you guys kind of have like a high level talk.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah. And we have our conversations, you know, interpersonally between each other. But yeah, when it comes to like a gathering or family meeting, it's, you know, we're usually having a good time and, you know.
And I think it's, again, like the Asian culture of like, you don't talk about shit. You don't air your laundry out.
I think it also stems into, it stems into
can I use your dryer?
Exactly.
Where like Asian parents are like, they've been doing this for essentially generations. So if you shift the model, I feel like there's some sense of like, well, if my kid thinks that this is the wrong way to do it and they figured something else out, did I live my entire life the wrong way? And so I think there is some sense of like trying to preserve the idea that I did it right, I'm okay. but because you don't get into the, like, in my experience, Asian parents don't really have that kind of thinking. It's been, like you said, Neil, they're always in that do or die mode, right? Like they struggle, they have to work crazy amounts of hours just to survive. You know, they don't have to work crazy amounts of hours just to go home and complain about it. Like that is in itself is a luxury that we can have. They're really trying. If I don't do this, people don't eat, and then people die.
Right.
So
that's why they don't want to hear you bitching about it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So
And
I want to
wanna-
hear about your stuff. Like I've been struggling this whole time.
Exactly. Right. Like your little ass problem. Shut up.
Yeah, that's true. They are little. They are little. That's true. Compared to the grand scheme of things, that's true.
I do want to tie into what you said, Mike, earlier about how parents also need to continue to grow. And I think that's one of the biggest hangups with, I'm just going to generalize with Asian. I don't know what other cultures are kind of the same way.
And that's the thing, like we shouldn't, because like Mike said, a lot of it applies to everyone. Like we each have certain things that are similar and certain things that are different. But yeah, I definitely agree. I'm sure like so many people, like whether it's culture or just individual families have the same.
Okay. So then I'll scope it to like the previous generation with this kind of mindset, right?
I would say generational.
I mean, it could even be the entire generation, but they forget that they need to grow. And going back to what you said about ROI, if you look at children as ROI, what I think what happens is when you have a kid, you treat it as this idea of passive income. And so you're looking at ROI from a perspective of where you were. But it doesn't work like that. It doesn't translate directly to that. The return on investment has to reflect the current state of the economics of that child, right? So to you, from what you experienced, the return on investment seems really low because they're complaining about like these trivial things. Like I could not eat and I didn't complain. You know what I mean? Like that kind of mentality. But in reality, the return on investment is huge because now they're in a position to where they don't have to worry about eating. That's just a thing. But I think parents forget that and they live essentially in the past when comparing you. Like, so it kind of like creates this sense of like hostility, sort of, not really, because then we look back at our parents and go, you don't know my life, and they're looking at you going, you don't know my life. And so it's just like, all right, let's take some time to figure out and talk about it. But then that previous generation also doesn't talk about shit.
I was gonna say that they will not. Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
There's a funny
crazy.
joke that a Nigerian comedian said. She's like a first generation British person, but her parents are immigrant Nigerians. And she was talking about how she told her mom how she wanted to be a comedian, and her mom was like, "I didn't move from Nigeria for you to be a clown." Like a clown. Like she literally gave up her life so her child could be in her eyes a clown.
Right, that's hilarious.
And it's like in her eyes, I really just like broke my back for this child to like. So there's already this bitterness of like, really, this is what you did with like my sacrifice.
Right.
I can understand that.
And then on our end, there's so much pressure to deliver that upwards generational wealth that there's bitterness from us because it's like, why are you putting this on us? Like, because we didn't ask to be born to you.
Right.
How dare you give me life?
Like, not to say that, but it's just like no, but like we really were born into this, and like we didn't choose this, and now we have to deliver. And like, I'm sorry, that's what your life was, but this is my life. Like I have to live it. There's this, like you said, Mark, there's this like combativeness, friction of two different perspectives where you see your own American friends pursuing the pursuit of happiness, but your role is to increase your family's, pride and I keep saying generational wealth, but it is. It's like we want you to be an engineer or a doctor. Like we want that ROI after all that sacrifice. We want to see it before we die.
That's so like there's so many interesting things you said in there. I can feel myself forgetting them. So one thing you said, we didn't choose to be born, right? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that I've heard that if there is a such thing as a soul, or there's the energy that becomes the child did choose the particular parents to help not only the parents grow, but to come into kind of like reality to learn a certain thing. Like if you want to take it to that level, it's supposedly, that's at least what I've heard. Like I said, I can't say you're wrong, because I believe, I think the same way, right? Like I didn't ask for you to have me. Like, I mean, you might not even ask to have me, right? Like it might have been a whim, right? Like, but at the same time, I've heard that if we're going to go with there is a soul, that your soul chooses the parents because there's something in that line of reality that your soul is supposed to learn in order to evolve and grow, and that you are supposed to teach the ones around you that they're supposed to grow, right? So, I remember Mark, and I think all of you had said that the parents don't think they're supposed to grow anymore as well, like after they have the kids. But I've heard it been said that like when you have a child, it's your duty to teach them up into a certain point, and then after that they teach you. Right.
Yep.
So you learn more about yourself by watching your child grow, right? You can give them only but so much, and then they teach you, because like before you teach them, don't you talk back to me, or don't get that kind of attitude with me, they'll tell you when you're fucking up, right? They will show you if you're being mean or closed-minded or something like that. There's so many things that I've learned just about myself from watching my children interact with me, right? Because they're technically sort of like me, but just from a different perspective. So I'll stop rambling there because I can't remember what else I want to say, but those are two things that I want to say.
I will say I did see mom change a bit, because she was real intense when we were growing up, where she's like, no alcohol in the house. And now she's like, tequila shot? Like when Mark was
honestly, I think I definitely see where our mom was like, she put on her like boot camp hat on, but once we got the college set, career set, then she's like, okay, I did my job.
That's true.
Yeah, so I see that too. I did my job, now we can be people now. So,
yeah. You're not an adult until you get a degree, right? And then you get that, or until you get your job, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, why no kids? Why no baby?
Yeah.
You told me to focus on my career, and now all of a sudden, snap! I just have a kid. Like,
maybe that's why you guys, like you said, you guys are outperforming everyone else. It's because of that mentality. So maybe it's not a bad thing. You know, I know.
Real quick before you say it's not a bad thing, I do want to point out the statistic of like I think Asian communities in general have the higher suicide rates when it comes to education.
We really are on the bottom on mental health. But we outperform salary wise because we don't talk about feelings. We're put under this pressure, and we don't put a red flag like I'm gonna mentally break before like someone intervene. Like we don't talk about that. And I like Mark, you're right that like we really underperform in mental health.
And you can see how they correlate. You can see how those two statistics would be in relation to one another. So yeah, and for me, you know, in terms of, I'm glad we had that instilled in me, because right now I'm not fighting and clawing. I'm past that point in my career. Like I'm happy where I'm at. If I stay there, you know, whatever. Like my focuses have changed in terms of life in general. But I at least have that core, you know, scrappiness in me to at least not. I haven't quit my job yet. At least I know that I need to stay doing what I'm doing so I can at least, you know, provide and stay stable. And I can autopilot that way because I have that core, you know, grain in the back of my head. So
you got that core program running.
That core program, exactly. There you go. That core script running. So I know that I won't do anything crazy. So at least, you know, I have that base, you know, foundation. So at least now I could focus the extra energy on what's that next level of life. Now that I have basic needs, I learned that the whole career thing is not what life is about. The whole career thing is really just to provide for your basic needs. That's what it should have been about from the get-go. So now, what is that fulfillment on top of the rest of the time you have in life? So yeah, so I hope to find that.
Yeah, I want to add to what you said about careers. Like that's not the point. I also want to point out that career doesn't just mean the 40 hours you work. It also means all the stress that you take outside of the 40 hours to deal with it, or the negative impact it has on your like effectiveness on like, let's say you can't lift as much because you're so pissed off at work that you burnt all that mental energy to there. So now you're tired and you're like, whatever. That's part of it. That's all part of it. And people don't realize that. Like when you talk about work-life balance, a lot of people just go, oh, 40 hours, no more thinking about work. And that's
Right.
work-life balance. And I'm like, you might not be able to see how it affects you outside of the 40 hours, but it is doing it. And you have to take that into account. So that, big salary that you're getting or that big pay raise you're getting, if it puts a lot of stress on you, it actually might not be worth it.
Mhm.
Right.
You just,
Right.
but again, you have to be able to think like that. And it's really hard because no one teaches it to you. You just happen to fall apart on it or upon on it. Whatever the word is, you know what I'm trying to say. And I think, Mike, you were talking about that in the other podcast where that's the midlife crisis.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Neil alluded to it, but my in a prior job, I was so stressed out from like the higher you go in the corporate chain, the more psychopaths you're like exposed to because corporate world, there's a book called Snakes in Suits. The corporate world breeds psychopaths and sociopaths.
Yep.
And it wrecks your mental health. And my mental health was so wrecked. And this Asian ingrainedness of success, like I had to swallow that and be like, this is not my identity. I'm Dana no matter what. And I like went down on that corporate ladder and took a pay cut. And I'm like, there's no price on my happiness and my mental health. And Mark, you even say like, I'm in a better state now and the current job I have, but I'm still dealing with that. I have a lot of like imposter syndrome where I'm like second guessing myself because these other people are like putting me down at work and I'm like bracing myself that someone's going to do that to me. Like there's a lot of things that go on in your work that you just put on. Like it's a lot of baggage that you bring. And I'm relearning behaviors of like, that's a different job. I have to like learn to trust people and not have this PTSD of like,
Yep.
this psychopath that like ruined my life in a prior job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
sorry, real quick. If you got a chance, can you link that book? You said Snakes and Suits?
Snakes and Suits.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm actually really curious on that because I'm just gonna like my thought right now is it because the higher you get on the corporate ladder, the less you start thinking about the individual, the more you think about the big picture. But the big picture essentially means having to sacrifice these sets of individuals.
Right.
That's what I want to see if is actually true from reading that book.
Yeah, I mean, my recollection is that sociopaths and psychopaths are they're like disapproved in society because those behaviors of stepping on people, making them feel less, that sort of thing is obvious in our society. But in corporate culture, all you do is produce. And a lot of people who have high IQ have very low EQ and they can really produce and be really like brute force about it and step on other people and like, like put others down and like put them to shame. And like producing is rewarded.
Yeah.
And that's why like it's weird, like in corporate culture, like the book says sociopaths and psychopaths, like it's a breeding ground for them because it's rewarding them for like stepping on other people. Yeah.
Wow.
And like it's weird because when I got to a certain level in the corporate chain, like it was everywhere and I just couldn't take it. I was like, this is not how I'm gonna live my life. Like at the end of the day, I'm still making this millionaire, billionaire person money and I'm like, my salary increased how much? Like I'm still breaking my back for this other person. And it's like at the end of the day, we're going back to this thing of like we're fighting each other to get little increments on that corporate chain. When at the end of the day, we're making like someone else like millions.
Yep.
And it's just like we just have to choose what makes us happy.
Real quick, what is EQ? I forget.
EQ is your emotional intelligence.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah, I know my the way I was brought up, I was always advised to follow kind of like my heart and not worry about the money. The money will come, you know, the you being able to take care of yourself will come. You don't want to sacrifice your life experience, because you only get one. You don't sacrifice like who you are, or any of that for the sake of money, right? And I think maybe that's happens a lot, I guess, in the quote unquote Black community, is that you go for what you feel rather than what the stats say are good, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's why, like generally speaking, that community is on the lower end of the financial income areas, right? Like maybe that's why, because I know I didn't care about the money at first, and that's why when I got out of college, I didn't go directly to getting a job. I said, cars are cool. What can I do with cars? Oh, I'll just be a car janitor, right? And I started a car detailing business. I mean, I got to ride around in Lamborghinis and, you know, Ferraris, right? And a lot of times people don't even get to see the insides of those cars, but you know, driving around in Aston Martins and things like that. And I just thought that was cool. I met awesome people. Like I said, we would just have beers and get drunk and smoke all day and be at the beach and just do whatever. And I was making enough money to survive. And then once I said, okay, I guess I need to try to do what society says is right and finish using this degree, that's when the stress started. That is literally when it was just like all of a sudden, now I'm worried about how much I make. Now I'm worried about how people perceive me. Now I'm worried about how I speak and stuff like that in meetings and stuff. When before I was making way more detailing. Like when I came into the corporate world, I took like a 50% pay cut and had to like work my way back up past that to get to where I'm at now. And that's why I will teach my kids to, you know, understand money, right? Like the richest man in Babylon kind of understand money, right? Like you when you get money, you put it to work for you, right? Money is nothing but a quote unquote, you know, worker, and you put it to work for you. If you don't treat it with respect, then it will leave you, right? You know, those kind of things. And as long as they understand how money works, understand interest, understand debt, they should have the tools they need to make the decisions that keep them on a decent economic level, but also still follow their heart.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, like, there's also the tax, there's also stocks, there's also like, there's so many avenues that I'm learning now that I'm like, mother, like, it's like, you know, you get your salary increase, right? Yearly, or, you know, you try to, right? But like all that money that you just toss into savings, or you toss for, you know, more luxury items. It's like, it's not necessarily that you're wasting it. I wouldn't call it wasting. It's just that you don't know about all these other opportunities that you should be taking. Is crazy. Like, I was taught that refinancing is a bad thing, right? Like, don't refinance. You only need to do it once because it costs money and blah, blah, blah. Then I find out there's a no cost refinance. And I'm like, what? And so I refinanced like 3 times. I saved $900 off my mortgage, like in 2 years.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
imagine
get
that
with you
over
on
30
that.
years.
Oh,
right.
So exactly. If you want to talk to Neil too, because he's the one I talked to.
I got a guy.
You got a guy. Yeah.
Because when I talked to my guy, he was like, well, the amount it's going to cost you to do it, you won't recoup that cost for 36 months or 38 months. I'm like, well, then what the fuck is the point?
Yeah. Well, so and it's also the money you save, you need to invest. So all that money that I've saved, I put into stocks. So it's not like if you just look at your loan and that's all you look at, sure, it might not be a good idea. But what are you going to do with that extra money that you save?
Right.
Can you compound on that interest?
Right.
You can, then it's a better opportunity. But
Absolutely.
You just got to know. And it's really hard to know. Because you get it on all the math and stuff. Like, I mean, computer science. I did piss poor in computer science because I was like, what do I need? I want to code. I don't want to know about theory. I don't care about these algorithms. Like, who cares? Like, can this make me show stuff on a screen to do something? No, I don't care. So like, why am I spending all this time in it? And I actually like got really bad grades in CS. But come, and it wasn't that I couldn't understand it. It's just I wasn't ready to. Come interview time for like FANG companies, crack open the book. I'm learning algorithms. Like, okay, I remember all these, and now I know them because now I need them. But
Yeah.
It's that like you just gotta know what you need to know, or you gotta be aware of things that you need to know and when to actually use them. Because there's no point. It's a lot of information. It's too much information to just hold on to the whole freaking time. Did
Man.
Dana drop?
Yeah, what
Yeah,
happened?
she did. We're
Oh,
having
okay.
technical difficulties.
okay.
So can you just charge right here?
Did her
She ran
laptop
out of
die?
battery.
Oh, okay. There you
Yeah.
go.
Can you just charge right here while you go on the podcast?
Do you want me to join audio on this?
No, you could still, the audio's on my laptop.
Oh yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I was thinking, but I can't hear what they're saying.
Oh yeah. No, so just you could turn your laptop back. Just what you were doing before, just plugged in. I was like, why can't you just plug your laptop in while we're doing
Yeah, I just didn't understand. We were trying to talk to each other through like the phone and not mess up the audio, so it's not understanding what you meant.
Okay.
technical difficulties.
So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, we got it. Here
That's what we learned through.
Yeah, so real
Yeah.
quick, I mean, on a different, not a different topic, but just like while we're waiting for Dana to get back, so when you guys are doing your Twitch thing, are you, how, yeah, this is completely different because this is like something I'm struggling with right now, right? Like, how do you have this kind of stuff plus the video game kind of stuff? Like, is it two separate platforms? Is it two separate channels? Two separate, what is it like? What, how are you?
You want to take this and then I'll put my answer?
Yeah, I can start. I was thinking
Alright.
for at least the live Twitch or the live kind of streams between us, to maybe just make it a Twitch, started as a Twitch thing. But I did want to make my own kind of gameplay videos when it comes to like impressions or maybe a review of a game on the
Right.
YouTube channel. Like, I guess in context. So if it's just me playing like ad lib, you know, candid, just playing a game with Mark or you, whoever it might be, I would put that on Twitch. But then there's content that I would want to put on YouTube if it's like an impression kind of video, something like that.
Right, but then how do you have a different YouTube channel for this kind of stuff? Right?
No, I'm gonna make it, put it all in one.
All just one? Yeah, because that's what I'm kind
I
of
know.
going through right now. I was looking through it and
It's
they say
hard.
don't really do that, but
Yeah.
because
You
of
should have
the
been on the other podcast, man. This is exactly what we talked about.
Yeah, because
For
I know,
real?
like,
Yeah.
especially when you're starting out, people just want to see one thing, right?
right.
Yeah, well, if I'm doing a review of this or that, you can't just have everything because then no one's going to subscribe. So I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, because they
But-
say the algorithms also.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was thinking to like, if I could do this kind of stuff and then still sort of do it a little bit while I'm like playing, but I don't see how I could do it. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be a streamer, but I definitely want to review games. Like, I was playing, what's that shit? Outriders or something it is on PS5. And I'm going to be like so hard on that game. I think that's going to be my first YouTube game review.
Yeah.
And I'm going to shit all over it because it pissed me off. The game really pissed me off.
Yeah, but honestly, to an extent, I don't see, you know, because there are people, and I guess, yeah, a lot of them are already the successful ones that do content based on a lot of different stuff. But, you know, the way I had thought about my channel is maybe, you know, there are people who are kind of into the same sort of things that I am, and they can just appreciate, you know, it could be like video game here, it could be you know, some kind of review of like a watch or like a phone or something, you know, so
Yeah.
we
Okay.
can kind of go hand in hand, and I'm trying to figure that out too. I do agree. I do hear what you're saying, and when I do upload, I have a bit of a hodgepodge of things too. I am looking at kind of the analytics and be like, oh yeah, no one's watching these. More people are watching this kind of video and whatnot. But it's something. Yeah, I hear you. For now, it's going to kind of be everything on one YouTube page if they can kind of relate in one way or another.
Yeah, so the approach that I took is calling it a brand, right? Which is kind of like a little out there, but I have no other things to relate it. So the idea that I have, again, it's like why I'm doing multiple types of podcasts, also why I'm trying to like build up a gaming thing. But if you look at Disney, right? Disney as a company, we all think of it in one way. It owns ESPN and like 10 million other things, right? But it's not that Disney doesn't benefit from it. It's just like, you know,
Yeah.
there's other things that filter back into Disney. So I'm going to try to treat it like that. So me as a gamer is its essentially own sub company. Me as this person, as a podcaster who's more catered to real life, is its own sub company. Me as a podcaster for someone who's in tech is its own sub company. But it all goes around and try to build up Disney in this example, like that entity.
But you don't feel like that's like 3 times the work?
It's not, because oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I agree with you, Mark, because when I look for YouTubers and I'm like, oh, I like that John guy that cooked, I don't remember his last name. It's like John Schmalewski. Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
But if he named himself John the Cook, I'll type in John the Cook on YouTube. Like, it's just like, people won't remember you unless you're ultra famous, and you have to sort of brand yourself as like a simplified way of remembering until people remember who you are. Yeah.
And it's just, you can also plug yourself into your own stuff. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing stopping me. Like, I just plugged Root Access in here, right? So go check it. Like, if you check my channel description, I mean, it's a piss poor description because I didn't pay attention in English class, but it plugs Root Access, and I can go to Root Access and plug myself in if I want. But I mean, I'm not going to, because I don't know exactly the boundaries there. But yeah, it's just basically you use yourself to boost yourself. Your different personas will help boost you, like Mike AG.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand that. I think I definitely understand. But what I was trying to avoid was splitting the effort 3 ways, right?
Oh
Because, you know, if you have, say, I keep this soul technology thing keeps coming out, this life tech kind of thing. This is what this is what I kind of doing right now, right? And say, because you're supposed to have a consistent schedule, right? And, you know, consistent kind of look, maybe consistent group of people you're dealing with. And then, so do I have Saturday for this, and then like Tuesday for like gaming streams on Twitch, and then like Wednesday for, then like next thing you know, my whole week is taken up with shit, and I'm constantly doing this.
Well,
right?
so
Instead of doing it all in one, I'm running 3 brands instead of 1. I totally get the umbrella brand and the umbrella company, and then sub brands under. I that's the way I thought that I was going to try to do it, but then I thought, you know, diluting the effort might be sort of a mistake for me.
I think that if it's content you're going to put out one way or another, if you put it under one channel, let's say, honestly, I think as long as you're consistent, because I'm thinking it over in my head again, as long as you're consistent, at least with putting out content out, even if it's not all the same topic, if it's your gaming video one day and maybe a blog the other day, you'll still get traction. I really think it's just about the consistency of you putting stuff out there and just you being what you want to do. And a lot of your stuff will kind of inevitably be somewhat tech related anyway, it seems like. So I think, because I'm thinking in my head now, and actually, yeah, there are a lot of people I subscribe to that have a lot of subscribers that it's not just one thing they talk about or do videos about. They do videos about a lot of stuff, like lifestyle video channels. So there are a lot of those out there. And I think as long as you just keep uploading and consistent, I think you'll be fine. But then I see people like Dana, who's got like, she's pretty, like someone with a few thousand subs, and she did it by like, her content is very, you know, it's very consistent in terms of the topic, right? Like your channel is basically centered around a particular, you know, topic. So that's like the winning formula. Like you put out consistent stuff, and then consistent schedule, and then your topic is this is about this. Then yeah, you're probably gonna have a lot, you know, have a good time doing it. Yeah. But again, for me, I was like, when I was trying to start mine, and I'm still starting, I don't have any subs or anything like that. I couldn't narrow myself to, for me, I kind of want to do a video about this and this and this too. Right. So, you know, what do I do? And I just resorted to just put it all on my channel and see what happens.
Yeah,
Down
yeah.
the road. So I don't have the best advice because I actually, I'm nowhere near there.
Yeah,
so.
you're going against the grain, right? But I
I
like that though, because you never know, you might be pioneering a whole new kind
Yeah.
of thing, right? Because I felt like I was up until 3 a.m. thinking about this shit, and that's exactly how I felt. I'm like, maybe there's a lot of people out there just like me that don't want to just they'll come and check out a game, or they'll check out this review about a movie or something, and they'll also listen to us talk about whatever we're talking about. I didn't know
Yeah.
Dana had 3,000 subs though. Or
Yeah,
a
I
few
started
thousand.
10 years ago, so that's a 10-year.
I find that
And-
too a lot though. Yeah, it's hard work.
But I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, you amassed that when you were doing it, because when you were active on it, it's not like it took you 10 years. It took you like a few years.
It took me a year to get
Yeah,
3,000.
exactly.
Wow.
Humble
And I
brag.
just-
If you look at Dana's, and it's Dana loves, her channel is Dana Loves Makeup. So you already know what it's going to be about.
Right.
You go to the video and it's a consistent subject, right? So yes.
Maybe it's easier to get a nice like catalyst of followers, right? Like if you're doing the
Right.
same thing all the time, maybe you can get to that, become a partner with YouTube, as soon as possible.
And actually, there were
branch out.
people. So okay, I don't want to tell your story, but there were people reaching out to her, like, "Hey, can we have you on our channel and we could send you our products and you review it?" But she was kind of not as active anymore. But yeah, she was at that point.
Nice.
And you were also telling me with the formula that you have. Can I talk about the what do you call the shopping haul video?
Yeah, go for it.
Because her videos are so consistent. She did what you would call a haul video. I went to haul, like a makeup haul or whatever. And you were like, nobody cared, nobody watched that. They just want me doing the review kind of stuff and application kind of stuff. So it's crazy that that there is a set formula. When you're in that, when you're on that road, there is a set formula that you can exploit, so to say, to get that popularity. But also, I will say that, there are people that I sub to that have, maybe it's all tech, but it could be, I'm doing a graphic card review this one day, or one day I'm doing gameplay footage. And there are people that are successful doing that too, like different, topics.
It's also going to depend on what your target is. I think makeup, a lot more people are involved in makeup than tech, right?
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, added on to what you were saying, there's a channel called Think Media that focuses on micro YouTubers and how to grow them. And one thing that resonated with me that I saw on my channel too is that when people start off, they tend to make quote unquote selfish videos. For example, haul videos. Here's what I bought. And if you are unknown in the community, no one gives a shit about like what you bought. Like, I don't know this person, why do I care?
Right.
But like educational videos and entertaining videos are the things that get views because the mass are benefiting from it. How do you do this? A lot of people will click on this, or a really funny video, a lot of people will click on that too. But someone's day in the life, like this is what I did today, no one's going to care unless you're already famous.
Yep.
So you have to start building your base on things that people care about. And once people are invested in you and know you, then they'll care about what you did that day or what you bought that day.
Yeah.
But a lot of micro YouTubers get really like,
just give us the
frustrated.
makeup tutorials.
Yeah, a lot of micro YouTubers are like, oh, this is really personal to me because I like this is what I bought, or like this is what my day was, and no one cared. Like,
Yep.
you gotta like build the following. And it's funny because even I had 3,000, and I was uploading when I was in grad school 10 years ago, and the reason why I dropped off is because one, like back then there wasn't a lot of focus on like trolls, and I really took it to heart, and it really disgruntled me, and I just felt very bad about myself every time someone like said something mean. But now, and I was younger, I was in my 20s. Now in my 30s, I'm like, it's like some 12-year-old that's like being a piece of shit, that's like doing something to me. And now it affected my like how I uploaded for YouTube like the next 10 years. And you can't like let that affect you. But going back to that, like when the educational thing, I realized that the how-tos really got views. The most views was how to style curly and wavy hair. And back then there was no videos on that. And I got 500,000 views on that because girls didn't like, back then, like straight hair was the cool thing, but girls with wavy or curly hair, like they didn't know how to do it. And so like your point, Mike, about like being the entrepreneur, take that educational piece and see like what needs to be there too, like what people haven't done, so you're not competing with a lot of people on the same topic, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I know speaking of you know, the hair and makeup, I know this girl I used to date, she has like 30,000 subscribers now, and she does like makeup, like how to do braids and like wigs. Like until I met her, I didn't realize that, because I hate wigs, right? But until I met her, I didn't realize like wig technology was so like incredible. Like I thought that was literally hair coming out of your scalp, and you're telling me that you can take it off. I was blown away, and I haven't looked at hair the same way since. Like every time I'm like looking at to see if I can see the individual follicles coming out of somebody's head, man, it's crazy. But
yeah, they grow the humans, they cut the hair off and start the humans, and that's it's crazy advanced.
The other thing that Think Media pointed out is looking up what's trending and make a video on that. And then I realized my latest videos, when I did a review on Key sunglasses, which was trending on Instagram, it instantly got 20,000 views. And the next time, I'm like, oh, I'm so famous, like my 3,000 subscribers love me. The next time I did like a haul, I got like 300 views. And it's like, dang, like really people are clicking on stuff that they care about, and they're just searching and just clicking until they start to consistently follow you. And I think Neil, what you said, Think Media was also saying that like if you have a schedule of like Sundays at 3, people who like your content will tune in Sundays at 3. And I do that with the YouTubers I follow too, where one of them, they upload Wednesdays and Fridays at 3, and I'm always like in the middle of my day, I'm like, oh, I could take a break and like watch their new video. But it makes you grow subscribers a lot faster by being consistent, because they know when to expect content.
All right.
This is just like blown my mind with how to use analytics. Like I'm not even there yet. I'm just like, oh, a click, and a view.
That's why I was proponent. Like I'm like, if you put stuff out there, even if it's not perfect, it's good to just start getting the data in, right? And then you can get you'll get like 1 sub, maybe 2, maybe 3, but you're getting that data and that information and feedback from comments while you're still working on getting your videos to par. And I was telling Mark that, you know, I had the fear of trying to make everything perfect. Yeah. But then if you make everything perfect, the video perfect, you put it out there, but you have no subs, no one's gonna watch it.
Yeah, nobody watches it.
Right. So just, you know, my whole thinking was, you know, let me just, you know, put whatever I have out. And while people start watching it and I get a few views, maybe 1 or 2 subs here and there, I'll keep working on it, but then I'll also be able to see, you know, what's doing well and what's doing not.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, Mark.
Oh, sorry. So I don't want to cut it short, but you know, if you all want to keep talking about this, we can. But I really think like this should be a separate talk.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say you could cut it where I asked the question to get this one started, and then if you want, we could just like go back to the other thing, because we talked for like an hour and a half about
exactly.
school stuff. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, and I mean it really seems like we're all willing to talk about this new topic as well, but it doesn't really align with what we're trying. Like it's like we're supposed to talk like we were talking to ourselves in the past. Now we're talking to ourselves in the future. Like yo,
I would just say you gotta.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So we gotta
cut it and start a new one or something.
Okay, all right. I'll figure something out. But yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, do we keep talking about the YouTube thing?
How do you guys want to play it?
We can go back to the original.
Okay. I vote for original just because it's like
just to finish that out.
Okay. All right. So then this is just something that gets like, this is like an ad lib, like
I'll put like secret tape or something like
sure. Sure, that works. Yeah.
All right. So wait, let's go back to the.
I don't know what we were talking about.
What were we
I
talking
had a
about?
comment on what Mike said about how in like your culture, your family, you
Oh,
like
yeah.
speak deeply to each
Mhm.
other. And then you're like, oh, like when you ask them, how are you? And they're like, oh, I'm good. When you could tell it's not. And it's like, oh, fuck you. Like, why can't you like be deep with me? I saw somewhere and it really resonated with me. Like people can't meet you. People will meet you at a level where they've met themselves. If they haven't met themselves that deeply, they can't connect with you that deep either. So I feel like when people get uncomfortable, like, oh, like, and you're trying to get deep with them, it's because they haven't discovered it themselves to be
I
able to
definitely
talk
agree
to you
with
on
that,
that
yeah.
level. And
Right.
I've noticed that like a lot of people are real deep and some of them, they haven't even discovered that in themselves yet.
Very true. Very true. And I kind of take like one of my, I don't know what you would want to call it, like talents is pulling that kind of stuff out of people, right? So because I think, and it's normally like I said, my family, they're the ones if you ask my brother is the only one that I say, so what's going on? Oh no, everything's good. I'm like, no, what the fuck is really going on, right? He'll only come and say something to me when he has a problem and he wants advice. But my mother and I, we talk almost every day, and she's like my therapist, right? But normally when people hear me just like tell some things that I probably should be embarrassed about, but I'm not, they sort of that wall comes down, and then they're able to kind of be more free with me. And but it's exactly what you just said. That's exactly true. So I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
mean, you mentioned your your holy underwear on the last
Oh yeah,
podcast.
dude. Yeah, I don't even care. I don't even care.
Well,
I don't care.
I think, Mike, you have a good point where it's like the EQ thing of when you show that you can be open, it puts people's guards down because a lot of people are like, will they use this information against me? Or
Right.
are they a trustworthy person where I could be open with them? So you leading with openness and being like really transparent, it's like, oh, I could be cool. Like I could be open too. Like,
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yep. And it really that's how I deal with, like, when I meet women. It's not for everyone, because I use the apps a lot of times, and it'll be like they ask me, one of those top level scratch the surface kind of questions, and I always like kind of answer their question, but then go further, right? And based on their response to me going further, I know if I even feel like dealing with this person, right? Because if they give me like another 1 or 2 word answer and they're not really like trying to get to know, they're not giving me any information to get to know them, then I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how long it'll take. I'll keep talking to you, but you're bullshitting around. So, my responses will continue to be mine, but I have already kind of written you off. I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird thing. But I definitely share way too much, probably.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, like I look at your personality and I absolutely love that. That's why you're on here. You know what I mean? Like you have that ability. That's why I can drop you in, like technically these two are strangers to you, Dana and Neil.
Yeah.
They're completely new, yet you've opened up like so much and it generates a lot of good content. I could put a couple of my other friends in here and they would just sit there and say nothing, right?
yeah.
But so
Yeah.
I would say like that's a really advantageous thing to have, especially if you're trying to dive deeper inside this podcasting career. I'll call it a career
Hopefully.
for you.
Yeah, we got to figure it out.
Yeah. But it works out really, really well. I mean, the same for you and Neil, Dana. You got the same personalities as well. You're willing to open up. You're willing to do. I mean, obviously, like there are things that we won't talk about, and that's fine. But like, it's a lot more open than what most people are used to, I would say.
Yeah. So do we go to we did career. I think we did a lot on career and a little bit on we did a lot on education.
we did a lot of it.
Yeah. I don't know if we should go into relationships because that ends up that'll I don't know. What do you think, Mark? It's your show. What are you doing?
I think like we got a lot of good content. I'm not gonna lie, I'm starting to feel the burnout in the sense that memories of what I want to say while someone is talking are starting to just drop I can't remember what I'm gonna say right after you finish, and I have a lot of good things. I think we're gonna need to cut it, but I do think that we should do this again because we got the analytics and stuff for YouTube's, but like for YouTubing, like yeah, see, like I'm starting to like not even formulate words properly. And then we got relationships, which I think is because we use this podcast to get to know each other a lot better. Talking about relationships is going to be a lot deeper connection because we've already gotten past that. Okay, do we really know who each other are? Like, so I want to save relationships for another cast and have that be its own thing.
Am I invited to the next one?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, no, this is awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, this is really awesome. I will say, I think next time I'm gonna bring a notebook and pen because, like you said too, like I start to forget because it's like 3 other people trying to say something, and after they said, it's like, oh, I forgot what I said.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I'm not trying to be a dick and cut people off and be like, actually, and I'm like, oh wait, what was I saying? But
yeah, that's the hard part. Yeah. What was I gonna say? See.
Exactly. You gotta know when to cut it, man.